Hey everyone. For today's topic, I want to discuss why I often urge people who work on themselves not to date someone average. There is a reason for this, and it has nothing to do with elitism and believing you're better than other people. None of that BS. Instead, it's because these relationships have a high chance of not working for three really important reasons, and I'll be sharing those reasons in this video. But before I go any further, I want to just clarify what I mean by someone who works on themselves and someone who's average. So to me, people who work on themselves are people who consciously choose. They make a decision to become a better person over time. So these are people who are going to go out there and learn new things. They're going to be working on healing their past trauma, working on their insecurities, developing better relationships with their emotions so they don't act on them all the time, developing more self-awareness. Basically, people who are just becoming a better human being over time. Now, average people are people who don't do that. They're the norm, right? Like, this is very common. Most people don't really consciously work on themselves because they just either don't know about it or they have no desire to do it because it's difficult work. It really is. We know that, right? It's not easy. And most people want to go the easy route, so they avoid this. But this is part of the reason why I tell people who work on themselves not to date someone average, because quite often what you'll end up finding is that if you go for average people, you will likely be putting in the vast majority of the work to make the relationship pan out well. And this is because people who work on themselves will have the tools needed to create healthy relationships. They'll have been working on themselves to become a better person, which means the relationship should be better. The problem here is that average people don't really do that. So they're going to still have a ton of insecurities and hang-ups that can lead to the relationship failing over time. But this also means that the person who works on themselves will then be picking up the vast majority, the vast bulk of the work to try to create that healthy relationship, to try to make things stand the test of time. And this is where you can end up with those really one-sided relationships where one person is putting in all the work and the other person isn't. And more often than not, the person who works on themselves, they're going to be the one on that uneven side where they're doing everything possible to try to make things work, and that average person is not. So that's one of the main reasons why I suggest you shouldn't go for someone average if you work on yourself, because you just want to avoid that horrible mental health hit from trying to make something work but feeling like you're the only one trying to make it work. Like, it's a horrible place to be. So that's why I say, for the most part, try to avoid average people, because that is something that could easily happen if you try to make things work with one of them. Now, moving on to the second thing, this is one of the more important ones. Average people are more likely to hurt you. And it's not because of themselves. Like, they're not trying to hurt you. It's just because they haven't worked on themselves enough. They're unevolved. And that means they will have hangups and trauma and insecurities that will lead to them acting in certain ways that could potentially hurt you. For instance, people who don't work on themselves will often act on their emotions more quickly than people who do work on themselves, which means they could scream at you during fights, they could say hurtful things, or maybe even lash out at you physically and be abusive in that way, because they haven't worked on themselves enough to control their emotions. This also means they're more likely to cheat, because if they haven't worked on controlling their lust for other people, then if an opportunity presents itself, they're going to be more likely to jump on it, right? And they're also probably not going to have the same conscience that someone who works on themselves will have. Meaning, if an opportunity presents itself for someone who does work on themselves, they'll know, hey, even though this may be fun to pursue, I shouldn't do it because I really value my relationship with my partner. So I'm going to be loyal, and I'm going to tell this person, hey, like, buzz off, I'm taken. But someone who's average, they're going to be far more likely to take that opportunity and end up cheating. So there are many ways that average people can hurt others in relationships because they haven't worked on themselves. So if you have worked on yourself, try to avoid average people because they can mess you up. Like, I don't know if we can ever hit a point where you're like immune to getting hurt. So you could lose a lot of progress if you decide to try to make things work out with someone average. They could detract from a lot of the time and years you've spent trying to better yourself. They could hurt your self-esteem, maybe even demolish it over time. So it's just not worth it in the end, in my opinion. So that's like the most important reason. But then the third and final reason I have for you is because you can't make other people grow or change. So even if you've spent like years or decades improving yourself, you can't make other people change. Like, sorry to break it to you. I know that sometimes we think we're the exception. We're like, hey, I know enough about psychology. I can make someone change. Maybe, maybe you could, but the odds are against you. Far more likely what's going to happen is you'll spend a bunch of time and energy trying to help that other person improve themselves, and it doesn't pay off. It doesn't work. So you'll end up wasting that time and energy. So people only really change if they want to. It has to come from within. So unless you find an average person who already has that mindset, it probably isn't going to pan out. Instead, you're just going to take another negative mental health hit because you're trying to help this other person improve themselves and become better, and they have no desire to do that. So that's a third and final reason. Like, no matter how great of a person you are, I don't believe you'll be able to change others. It's possible, but the odds are so freaking low, you might as well just treat it as being impossible so that you don't even try to do it. Because you just don't want to waste your time and energy doing that and ending up with that reduced mental health over it. It's just not worth it. So instead, either try to find people who already have worked on themselves, or try to find someone who has that mindset that they are willing to become a better person. It does happen from time to time, right? Like, we've heard the stories of a relationship that's starting to fail, and then they go to couples therapy, or maybe they even just have heart-to-heart discussions with each other, and then one of the partners, the one who's slacking, will then realize, hey, I need to become a better person, and they'll make that commitment to themselves, and they will become better, and things will work out over time. That does happen, excuse me, but it's really rare. And yet again, remember, they have to choose to do it, right? Like, in those situations, they have to care about the relationship enough to say, hey, I'm going to become a better person to make this work out. But most people, they're just not going to be willing to do that. So those are the three main reasons why I urge you, if you work on yourself, to not pursue average people, because you may end up being the person who puts in all the work, or they have a way higher likelihood of hurting you, or you're just going to be in that situation where you can't make them grow, you can't make them change. So don't even try to do that. Try to find people who are on a similar level to you. Maybe not the same level, but a similar level. People who have spent time trying to improve themselves. And you'll know these people when you meet them, right? Like, they're not average. So immediately they stand out. These people are rare. Like, you'll normally know because they'll have a high level of empathy. They'll be very kind to others. They'll have good emotional regulation, meaning they're not going to come off super emotional because they have their emotions under control, which really just means they don't act on their emotions. They still feel them, they're just not going to be as likely to act on them, which makes them appear emotionless. But no, they feel them as well. They've just kind of mastered them in that way. And they'll also have a high level of self-awareness and all sorts of things. The list goes on. But you'll know these people when you meet them because they're so freaking rare. I've got a lot of friends like this, and they're not average people. Like, they're hard to find, and I get that. So unfortunately, it can be rather difficult to find people like this. But if you are working on yourself, you should be in a place where you're able to be happy on your own, so you don't even need a partner to make you happy. You should be comfortable being single. That will definitely help you on this journey because, yeah, unfortunately, these people there's not a lot of them. So it's not like you can just walk down the street, turn the corner, and bump into one. More often than not, you'll have to seek them out, either by finding environments that attract people like this, like the gym or yoga classes or personal development seminars that a lot of content creators around the world will throw. I've even considered doing this eventually when I have a much larger following because I think that'd be cool. But yeah, there are places you can go, certain environments that have a higher likelihood of attracting people who work on themselves. So try to think about what environments the kind of person you want to attract would be in, and then go to those environments and meet people and see if any of them are people you like and are interested in, and single as well, because that's another problem with people who work on themselves. So often they're not single because these are loyal people, right? So when they get into a relationship, they strive to make it healthy, they strive to make it work, and they're loyal. So yeah, it can be very tricky to find people like this, but they are out there, so do not give up. And if you have no other options, you could potentially find them online, although I wouldn't suggest dating apps at all. Like, I think There are very few people like this who tolerate dating apps. So instead, yet again, use certain environments that would attract them. Like my comment section could potentially be one, because a lot of the people who watch my videos are working on themselves, or other personal development content creators out there as well. There are certain environments online where you can find people like this. So if you aren't against long distance relationships, then give that a shot. See if you can meet someone like that. You never know who's out there, and you're always going to be better off if you expand your, how do I put it, like the radius of people you date, and go online as well, versus just trying to find them in like your immediate city or town that you live in. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about in this video. Hopefully you understand my logic for why I tell people who work on themselves not to pursue average people, and hopefully the end of the video gave you some tips that can maybe help you find people like this in your life, because yeah, unfortunately they can be somewhat rare to find, but I think it's a worthy pursuit. I am at a point where I wouldn't get into a relationship with an average woman, because I know all the potential things that could happen, that could go wrong. So if a woman doesn't already have that mindset of wanting to become a better human being, I'm just not going to spend time trying to get into a relationship with her. Yeah, maybe I'll date her and have fun with her and enjoy the time spent with her, but I'm not going to want to get into an actual relationship with her. That's just where I'm at. So maybe some of you want to pursue a similar route. It's good for your mental health, and it helps you avoid getting hurt, and it helps you avoid wasting your time. So yeah, do what's best for you. But that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about this. But otherwise, the easiest way you can help me out is just to throw a like on the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci!